Earth received the message at dawn. It wasn't just a transmission, it was a declaration. The alien dictators had spoken, and their ultimatum echoed across every device, every screen. Cold, mechanical voices demanded Earth's unconditional surrender. The image of their massive fleet, hovering over a decimated planet from another system, accompanied the message. The destruction was a grim preview of what was to come. The leaders of Earth gathered in secret. They had known this day might come, had feared it for years. The aliens, an empire that had crushed civilizations across the galaxy, were finally here. Humanity, though advanced in its own right, was still outclassed by the alien technology. Earth had been preparing, but nothing could truly match the sheer scale of the enemy they now faced. The room was filled with tense whispers. Earth's best minds debated strategies, weighing the cost of compliance against the certainty of annihilation. "We can't win a conventional war," someone said. "Our fleets are no match. Our cities would fall within hours." But there was one last card to play, one secret project that had been kept hidden, even from most of the leaders in that room. General Rhodes, a seasoned military strategist, stepped forward. His expression was grim, but there was a flicker of defiance in his eyes. "There's another option. The Giants." For a moment, the room went silent. The Giants. A word that carried both hope and fear. Most had only heard rumors, but now those rumors were reality. Rhodes explained. Over the last few decades, a covert program had been developing genetically engineered superhumans. Not just taller or stronger humans, but beings that were nearly indestructible, capable of physical feats far beyond normal human limitations. These beings, these giants, had been designed specifically for this kind of war, an existential threat from an enemy that could not be reasoned with. The giants were humanity's last hope. "There are only a handful of them," Rhodes admitted. "But they were built for this. We kept them off the radar, even from our allies. They've been trained, honed, prepared. It's time to unleash them." There was hesitation. "Can they be controlled?" a civilian leader asked. "They're not weapons, they're people. What if they decide to?" "We don't have a choice," Rhodes cut in. "It's them or surrender. And if we surrender, we all know what happens next." The room fell into a grim silence. The image of the alien fleet loomed in their minds, a shadow over every possible future. Finally, the decision was made. Earth would not surrender. The giants would be sent to fight. Within hours, the order was given. Hidden deep underground, far from the public eye, the giants were activated. They had lived their lives in secret, away from the world they were created to protect. But now, their moment had come. Each of the giants was different, a product of years of genetic engineering, fine-tuned for specific strengths. Titan V, the most powerful among them, stood over 8 feet tall, his muscles dense with the kind of strength that could crush steel. His reflexes were sharper than any predator's, his body a living weapon. He had been trained for years, but until now, had never seen real combat. As the giants emerged from their containment, there was no fanfare, no celebration. They were not heroes in the public's eye, at least not yet. They were tools, powerful, yes, but unpredictable. Titan V glanced at the others. He knew them well. They had trained together, fought in simulations that mimicked the war they now faced. He could see the determination in their eyes, but also the questions. The same questions he had. What were they really fighting for? Was it duty, or something more? The transport that would carry them to the battlefield arrived. No words were spoken as they boarded. There was nothing to say. The enemy was out there, waiting, and the giants were the only thing standing between humanity and extinction. As the ship lifted off, Titan V stared out the window at the Earth below. This was the world he was supposed to protect, a world that barely knew he existed. He thought about the civilians, the families, the lives that would be lost if they failed. But something else gnawed at him. The idea that maybe, just maybe, the world wasn't ready for the giants. Maybe they weren't ready for him. The alien fleet appeared on the horizon, a dark, menacing force blotting out the stars. The scale of the ships was beyond anything humanity had ever seen. Titan V felt a surge of adrenaline, his training kicking in. But beneath it, a question lingered. Were they fighting for Earth? Or were they just another experiment, another tool used by those in power? The thought didn't sit well with him, but there was no time to dwell on it. The battle was about to begin. The transport touched down on the outskirts of a decimated city, once a vibrant hub of life, now reduced to rubble. Alien forces had already started their ground assault. Giant war machines lumbered through the streets, crushing everything in their path. Titan V and his team stepped out into the chaos. The aliens noticed them immediately, their scanners picking up the unusual biological signatures. They paused, momentarily taken aback. Then the fighting started. The first alien machine that approached was massive, towering even over the giants. But Titan V moved with speed and precision. In one fluid motion, he leapt onto the machine, tearing through its armor as if it were paper. Sparks flew, metal screamed, and within seconds, the alien war machine was a smoking heap on the ground. The others followed his lead. The giants tore through the alien forces with a brutality that shocked even the enemy. The aliens, used to crushing resistance effortlessly, found themselves facing something they had never encountered before, beings who could match, even surpass, their own technology in raw power. But as Titan V ripped apart another machine, the question returned. What came after this? What would happen to the giants once the war was over? Would humanity thank them, or fear them? There was no time to answer. The battle was relentless. Titan V and the other giants moved with a speed and precision that seemed impossible for their size. They tore through the alien forces, smashing their machines, crushing their soldiers. Each strike was deliberate, each movement efficient. The alien war machines, once thought to be unstoppable, fell like dominoes. But as the giants pushed forward, there was no time to reflect on their victories. Alien reinforcements poured in. New waves of troops, more advanced and heavily armored, descended upon them. It was clear that the aliens had underestimated the giants in the beginning, but now they were adapting, shifting their tactics. Their arrogance was gone, replaced by a cold calculation to neutralize Earth's ultimate weapon. Titan V led the charge, his mind completely focused on the battle at hand. He felt the rush of combat, the adrenaline that came with knowing that every second counted. His body was a weapon, finely tuned for destruction, and he used it with ruthless efficiency. But somewhere in the back of his mind, there was a nagging feeling, an unease that had been growing since the moment they had been deployed. As the giants fought, their tactical support fed them data in real time. Alien ships were closing in on Earth's defense perimeter. Entire cities had been reduced to rubble in minutes, their population numbers dwindling fast. Every moment of hesitation on the battlefield meant more lives lost. The pressure was mounting. Then, the ground beneath Titan V shook violently. An alien drop pod slammed into the earth with tremendous force, cracking the streets. From it emerged a new type of enemy, sleek, humanoid battle drones with combat skills that rivaled the giants. These were not the clunky, towering machines that the aliens had previously used. These were different, designed to fight the giants on their own terms. Fast, agile, and lethal. The first few moments were brutal. One of the giants, Atlas III, was caught off guard by a drone's sudden strike. The alien machine ripped through Atlas's armor with precision, bringing him down. It was the first real loss. The first sign that this battle wasn't going to be an easy victory. Titan V rushed to engage the drones, his heart pounding. This was new territory. The alien commanders had created something specifically to combat them. Each hit he landed was met with counterattacks faster than he had ever encountered. It wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a challenge. But the giants were created for challenges. Titan V adapted quickly. He used the environment around him, forcing the drones into narrow spaces where their agility was compromised. He overpowered them with brute strength when finesse wasn't enough. One by one they fell. Despite their success, the battle was wearing them down. The giants were showing signs of exhaustion. Their bioenhanced bodies could only maintain this level of performance, for so long. They had been trained and prepared for war, but not for this, an endless tide of enemies that evolved with each wave. And the drones weren't the only problem. Overhead, the alien fleet began launching precision strikes. Orbital bombardments targeted not just Earth's cities but the giants themselves. The aliens were growing desperate. They wanted to end the fight quickly, even if it meant breaking their own rules of engagement. As the bombardments intensified, the ground cracked and crumbled around the giants. Buildings collapsed, roads shattered. The very earth beneath them seemed to rebel under the weight of the alien onslaught. And still, the giants fought on. Amid the chaos, Titan V noticed something troubling. Some of the other giants were starting to act differently. Not in how they fought, but in how they responded to orders. One of them, Helios 7, was disobeying direct commands from Mission Control. Instead of focusing on the drones, he had started to divert his attention toward rescuing civilians trapped in the ruins. It was a noble effort, but it wasn't part of the mission. It wasn't what they were designed for. Rhodes' voice crackled over their comms, stern and direct. Helios 7, fall back in line! You have your orders! Helios hesitated for a moment, then continued with his rescue efforts, ignoring the command entirely. Titan V clenched his fists. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. They were a unit, trained to fight with precision, to follow orders without question. But now, cracks were showing. Helios wasn't the only one. Atlas III, still recovering from his earlier injury, was also acting unpredictably. He seemed distracted, slower to react. A sinking realization began to dawn on Titan V. The giants were more than just weapons. They were people, and they were starting to think for themselves in ways that their creators hadn't anticipated. They had been engineered to protect humanity, but now they were beginning to question the exact nature of their purpose. What was more important, the mission or the people they were fighting for? The battlefield was no place for these questions, but they gnawed at Titan V nonetheless. His every instinct screamed at him to keep fighting, to push forward, to win. But what did victory look like if their own team was falling apart from within? Rhodes' voice came through again, this time louder, more frustrated. All giants, focus on the enemy! Do not deviate from your objectives! But the doubts remained. As the alien forces regrouped for another assault, Titan V had to make a decision. He could feel the strain in his muscles, the weight of the battle pressing down on him. Every second of hesitation meant more destruction, more death. The aliens were relentless, but so were the giants. Titan V took a deep breath and charged forward, smashing through another drone. The others followed his lead, falling back into formation for now. But the cracks were there, growing wider with each passing moment. The giants were Earth's last defense, but even they weren't immune to the questions that every soldier eventually faces. What are we really fighting for? As the next wave of aliens approached, Titan V knew that the battle wasn't just against the enemy outside. It was a battle within themselves, a conflict that could change everything. The alien forces regrouped, this time with a clear intent to overwhelm. Their drones had failed to defeat the giants outright, but now they came in greater numbers, backed by the full force of their fleet. The skies darkened as their ships positioned themselves over the battlefield, casting an ominous shadow over the earth. They weren't just fighting to win, they were fighting to annihilate. Titan V felt the pressure mounting, not just from the alien forces but from within his own ranks. The strain of the prolonged battle was taking its toll. Each giant had been designed to withstand incredible physical stress, but the mental burden of constant warfare was another matter. They were pushing beyond the limits they'd been prepared for, and it was starting to show. He couldn't shake the thought of Helios 7's disobedience. The way he had ignored direct orders in favor of saving civilians had set off a dangerous precedent. Others were starting to question the chain of command as well. It wasn't just about the battle anymore, it was about trust. Trust between the giants and the humans who had created them. Trust between the soldiers and their leaders. And that trust was fraying. The next wave of drones came faster than expected, their movements more coordinated, more precise. It was as if the aliens had learned from every encounter, adapting their tactics to counter the giants' strengths. They attacked in perfect synchronization, forcing the giants to divide their attention, spreading them thin. Titan V threw himself into the fight, smashing through drones with a fury that matched the intensity of the attack. But even as he fought, his mind kept circling back to the bigger picture. This was no longer just a war of muscle and machinery. The real battle was for control of the situation, of the giants themselves. Rhodes was barking orders over the comms, his voice more strained than before. He knew things were slipping. The command center had watched as the giants grew less responsive to directives, more autonomous in their actions. It wasn't just Helios 7 anymore. Even Atlas 3, after recovering from his earlier wound, had begun to deviate from orders. Each giant was now operating with an increasing level of independence, following their own instincts rather than strict military protocol. Titan V could feel it too. The surge of power in his body, the adrenaline of battle, it was exhilarating, but it came with a clarity he hadn't expected. In that clarity, he saw the cracks in the plan. The giants weren't just soldiers. They had thoughts, emotions, and now they had decisions to make. He watched as one of the giants, Artemis 9, broke formation and rushed toward a collapsing building. The structure had civilians trapped inside, but saving them wasn't part of the current mission. Rhodes' voice came over the comms, sharp and commanding. "Artemis 9, get back in formation." "That's an order." But Artemis didn't listen. She was already there, pulling debris away, saving those who hadn't yet fallen to the chaos around them. Titan V felt a strange mix of admiration and concern. He knew why she was doing it. He understood the impulse. But the more they acted on these impulses, the more they risked losing cohesion as a unit. The alien commanders were watching too. They saw the hesitation, the cracks forming in Earth's defenses. This was their moment to strike. Suddenly, the alien fleet began to reposition, aiming their firepower not at Earth's remaining defenses but directly at the giants themselves. Precision strikes targeted their positions, forcing the giants to dodge and retaliate at a pace they had never faced before. It was a direct attempt to break them apart, to scatter their forces. Titan V barely managed to avoid a blast that would have wiped out half his team. The ground shook, sending shockwaves through the city. Buildings collapsed around them, and the air filled with dust and smoke. It was chaos, pure and simple. He regrouped with the remaining giants, but the damage had been done. They were separated, disorganized. The drones pressed their advantage, swarming in from all directions. For the first time in the battle, it felt like they were losing. And then came the message. An alien broadcast cut through the noise of the battlefield. It wasn't directed at humanity. It was aimed at the giants. The voice was calm, almost mocking, as it addressed them. The alien commander spoke in perfect English, his words dripping with contempt. "Giants of Earth, you fight for those who fear you. You protect a species that views you as nothing more than tools, weapons to be used and discarded. They control you, order you to die in their wars, but what do you gain? You are more than human, and yet they treat you as less." The words hit harder than any drone attack. Titan V froze for a moment, feeling the weight of the message. He glanced at his fellow giants, seeing the same hesitation in their eyes. The aliens weren't just attacking their bodies, they were targeting their minds. The broadcast continued. "We offer you a choice. Join us. Stand with a power that respects your strength, your superiority. Or continue to fight for a world that fears the day you will no longer be under their control." Rhodes' voice broke through immediately, filled with anger. "Ignore that message! Stay focused on the mission. You are soldiers of Earth. Do not waver!" But the damage was done. The seed of doubt had been planted. Titan V felt the weight of it pressing down on him. The aliens' words had struck a chord because they weren't entirely wrong. They were more than just weapons. They were more than soldiers. And if they were to survive this, they needed to know where they truly stood. He had to make a choice. The giants were Earth's last line of defense, but they were also something more now, something the humans who had created them hadn't anticipated. They weren't mindless machines. They had autonomy, free will. And in this moment, that autonomy was both a gift and a curse. The battlefield raged on around him, but Titan V's mind was racing. If they followed the orders blindly, if they stayed as mere tools, they might win the battle but lose something far more important: their own identity, their own sense of purpose. He had never questioned orders before. He had always been the perfect soldier, the one who did what was asked of him. But now, with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance, he wondered if following orders was enough. The alien drones kept coming. The skies above them were filled with explosions and fire. Titan V knew they were running out of time. Decisions had to be made, and they had to be made now. He looked at the other giants, each of them facing the same internal conflict. The aliens had exploited a vulnerability that no one had anticipated: the giants' own humanity. And now, they had to choose. The decision weighed heavily on Titan V, but there was no time for hesitation. The battle raged on, and the aliens continued their relentless assault. Each moment lost in thought was another opportunity for the enemy to exploit their weakness. Yet, the question of loyalty, of purpose, could no longer be ignored. Every giant felt it now, an undercurrent of doubt running through their ranks. The aliens had sowed that seed, but the truth was it had already been there, festering beneath the surface long before the broadcast. Titan V charged forward, his focus sharp, but his mind divided. The drones were still coming, more coordinated than ever. The alien fleet loomed overhead, bombarding the landscape with precision strikes that forced the giants into defensive positions. He could hear Rhodes' voice in his ear, barking orders, but the words felt distant, detached. The giants weren't just following commands anymore, they were making choices. Helios 7 had already broken away, continuing his civilian rescues despite Rhodes' orders. Artemis 9 had gone rogue, prioritizing what she believed to be morally right over military strategy. Titan V knew they were walking a thin line between loyalty and defiance. But what else could they do? They had been created to protect humanity. But what if humanity's leaders were the ones putting lives at risk? The ground quaked as another alien drop pod hit the surface, unleashing a fresh wave of drones. Titan V moved on instinct, crushing the nearest drone with a single blow, but his mind wasn't on the battlefield anymore. He glanced at the others. They were still fighting, but there was no longer the cohesion they had once shared. Each giant was acting on their own judgment now, not as a unified force, but as individuals. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Rhodes, growing increasingly frustrated, screamed through the comms. "Stay in formation! Do not deviate from the mission! If we lose this battle, it's over!" Titan V knew the general was right, at least on the surface. They were Earth's last defense. If they fell, humanity wouldn't stand a chance. But even as the battle continued to escalate, something inside him shifted. Winning wasn't just about following orders. It wasn't just about destroying the enemy. It was about protecting what mattered, and sometimes, that meant making decisions that weren't in the manual. He had always been the one to follow orders without question, to carry the burden of the mission on his shoulders. But now, he saw the bigger picture. The mission wasn't just about defeating the aliens. It was about what kind of world they would save. If they continued as tools of the military, mindlessly following orders, they were no different from the drones they fought. They had to be more than that. He made his decision. Titan V broke from his position, charging toward a cluster of drones that had surrounded a group of trapped civilians. His actions weren't part of the plan. Rhodes had ordered all units to focus on the alien command center, but that didn't matter anymore. He wouldn't leave innocents to die for the sake of a tactical victory. The giants were created to protect, and that's what he would do, even if it meant going against orders. "Titan V! Where the hell are you going?" Rhodes' voice thundered through the comms, but Titan V didn't respond. He was done answering to commands that no longer aligned with what he believed was right. As he tore through the drones, a few of the other giants followed his lead. Helios 7 was already there, helping the civilians escape to safety, and now Atlas 3 had joined them, using his massive strength to clear a path through the debris. The rest of the team hesitated, caught between their orders and their instincts, But it was only a matter of time before the lines broke completely. Titan 5 felt the shift. They weren't just soldiers anymore. They were something more, protectors, yes, but also free. Free to choose, free to act on their own judgment, not bound by the rigid framework of military command. The battle was still far from over, and the alien fleet above continued to rain destruction upon the earth. But now, with the giants acting not as mindless weapons but as individuals, they fought with renewed purpose. Each of them had made the choice to protect humanity on their own terms, not because they were told to, but because they believed it was the right thing to do. The alien command, watching from their distant ships, must have sensed the change. Their tactics shifted again, this time focusing all their firepower on the giants, desperate to crush this new threat before it fully materialized. But it was too late. The giants had already found their resolve, and they fought with a ferocity that the aliens had never anticipated. In the chaos, Titan 5 realized something else. The aliens had underestimated more than just their strength. They had failed to understand that the giants weren't just biological weapons. They were living beings, capable of making their own decisions, capable of adapting in ways the aliens couldn't predict. And now, they were using that to their advantage. Titan 5, Helios 7, Artemis 9, Atlas 3, and the others pushed forward, not as a unit following orders, but as individuals working together toward a common goal. Their bond, once rooted in duty, was now stronger because it was chosen, not imposed. They fought for each other, for the people they had sworn to protect, and for the future they wanted to see. The alien forces began to falter, their drones unable to keep up with the unpredictable tactics of the giants. The sky, once darkened by the alien fleet, started to clear as the giants pushed the enemy back. The final battle was fierce, but it was no longer in doubt. The aliens had lost their advantage the moment they tried to exploit the giants' humanity. Titan 5 stood at the center of the battlefield, breathing heavily as the last of the drones fell. The alien ships retreated, realizing that Earth was no longer a planet they could conquer so easily. The war wasn't over, but this battle was won. Rhodes' voice came through the comms one last time, quieter now, less certain. You disobeyed direct orders, but you saved lives. There was a long pause before Titan 5 responded. We did what we were created to do. And that was the truth. The giants had been made to protect humanity, but now, they had found something more. They had found their own path. As the dust settled, Titan 5 looked out over the wreckage, the civilians emerging from the ruins, the other giants standing tall despite their exhaustion. They had won the battle, but more than that, they had reclaimed their own identity. They were no longer tools, no longer bound by orders. They were free. And in that freedom, they had found a new kind of strength.